Okay, so I have Brian by himself now, and I wanted to take a second to talk about his field of expertise, stock market, some individual stocks, investing, all that good stuff. Brian, thank you for coming on. Thanks for letting your kids do a little segment. Happy to have you, man.
Be here, Jesse.
So first off, why should we listen to you? Let's start with that.
Well, I don't think you should really listen to anybody if you don't think they're qualified. But I've been investing for almost 20 years now. I've made tons and tons of mistakes, and I've gotten a lot better over time, as you do with any field. And one of my passions in life is educating other people about money, personal finance, and investing. And I do so pretty prolifically for a company called the Motley Fool, which is one of the biggest investing-based services in the world. And they have millions upon millions of monthly people that visit their site, listen to their podcasts, watch their videos, etc. So that's where I hang my hat a lot, as well as on Twitter. And if you have read my stuff and think I'm worth listening to, then you should listen to me.
All right. Well, that's a pretty fair intro for yourself. I will say that Brian has been a tremendous help in my own personal finances, which I think we'll get to a little bit. He helps me kind of run through budgeting, expenses, income, and get a pretty holistic view of kind of where I was. You know, early 20s is a pretty tough time. I think a lot of our listeners are in this like college to adulthood transition. So investing might be something that is a secondary idea, but ever since this whole GameStop situation, it feels like a lot of people my age, even younger, have become very enthusiastic about the prospects of making money on the stock market. And I couldn't have thought of a more perfect person to have on than someone who is young and is successful in the market, who has been doing it for a while. Not my age, a little bit older, but still not a boomer by any means. And I guess I
am technically a millennial.
There we go. A millennial investor is here to save us. So first off, I guess just what's your overall take on this GameStop situation? It had another bump unexpectedly last week, but how much have you been following? What do you think's really going on? What's your interest level? Stuff like that.
Well, so I've been a GameStop investor for several years. So I started, I think, investing in GameStop in 2016 or so, mostly because the business was unfairly priced. So the stock price did not reflect the business fundamentals in a positive way. So I thought the stock was serially undervalued. That proved to be pretty darn wrong for many years. And it was just going down. And sadly, I kind of gave up hope in December. So right before all this craziness happened. That's okay. So I missed out on a tremendous gain that is kind of I've been investing for 15 years, almost 20 years. I've never seen anything as crazy as what's happened with GameStop over the last couple of months. And most people and most real world people have no interest in investing, have no interest in the market. So when people that have no interest in the market all of a sudden start talking about it, it's something that extraordinary that's happened.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom sent me a message about GameStop. That shows you how my mom has no interest in anything to do with investing or the stock market or anything like that. And she was asking me about GameStop, and I was like, wow, this story really blew up into like a way bigger thing that I could ever have imagined or predicted. So I think that most people here are at least vaguely familiar with what happened. GameStop was a lot of big funds were betting against GameStop, and then Wall Street bets kind of took the other side of that, and a lot of people became long, meaning that they were buying the stock and they were actually playing it with options, which are fancy derivatives that kind of leverage, meaning add more exposure than you could get through just putting cash behind the stock. I mean, that's dramatically simplifying it.
Hmm.
But then the stock price absolutely went crazy. I mean, it went from like $3 per share up to the peak was, geez, 300,
I think it was like
400,
480. Yeah.
dollars per share, and that was in a matter of, geez, 2 weeks or something along those lines. And then it crashed, as I mean, you would expect it to, because GameStop was neither worth $3 nor $500. It was worth probably somewhere closer to, I don't know, $10, $15, something along those lines. But what has happened is the stock prices become completely detached from the actual business realities, which can happen which is not all that uncommon in the stock market. What's uncommon is the degree to which they became detached, both on the downside and on the upside.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of crash is a good word for it. I definitely got a crash course from this whole thing. I got in on it and left way too late. I didn't lose much. I didn't gain as much as I could have. That's my personal story on it, but it was gambling, and I think that's something that I asked you over text, and you're like, "Yeah, it's just gambling for a lot of people." So that's what happens, I guess, when it becomes detached. It becomes a matter of, hey, is this going to have an insane swing up or insane swing down tomorrow? And that's not exactly what you do. So I'm assuming you stayed far away from it and watched the fireworks. So, you know, I guess the story kind of becomes not really about GameStop, but about what is the story of retail investing and these new heads that are being interested in it. Do you think that Wall Street bets is becoming a factor in the market? Is this something that hedge funds need to worry about when they're exposing themselves with shorts? Is it going to have a ripple effect, or is this something that's going to disappear in the next 6 months and it's back to business as usual?
My honest answer there is I have no clue.
Hmm.
I have no clue if what happened in 2020 was really unique in that a whole bunch of people were forced to be at home, and we saw in our numbers that there was tremendous interest in investing, just in general. People that had not considered or thought about investing at all of a sudden had a lot of time on their hands, and they thought, well, I'm going to get interested in investing. Does that stick around for the long term once the world reopens up and sports come back online and people start going out to living their normal lives? I mean, I have no clue. Um, the I personally don't pay too much attention to that because those things are unpredictable, and I have no interest in putting money behind or against things that are completely unpredictable. The sad thing from the whole GameStop saga, in my opinion, is that the first time that people hear about investing is through what happened with GameStop. And they conclude that one, investing is gambling, and two, that the market is rigged. And it's very easy to draw those conclusions when you see, again, a stock go from $3 to $400 or $500 and then back to $100. And what's the future of GameStop? I have no clue. But when that is your sole exposure to the stock market, it's easy to draw conclusions about it, especially when you saw things, what happened with Robinhood going online and stopping people from preventing them from making trading on GameStop, but allowing hedge funds to do so. And you see things like that. And of course, people are going to get discouraged, especially if you put any money in behind GameStop and lost money, which it was easy to do. If you bought after the hype was there and then you held on after the hype died down, you lost money. So it's really easy to, if that is your first exposure to the stock market, it's just super unfortunate because how could you not take away from that? Investing is rigged. Investing doesn't work. Investing doesn't make sense. And that's just really unfortunate because the truth is the stock market is the greatest wealth creation machine of all time, and millions upon millions of people have used the stock market to slowly, steadily turn themselves into millionaires or more. And that should be the takeaway there. But it's hard to get that lesson across when, again, you're hyper focused on one stock that had a kind of crazy month.
Yeah. I'm glad that this was not exactly my first exposure. It got me back into it. I was playing around, very like low funds, messing around a few years ago, and then we had a conversation about like real investing, like what's actually the best thing to do with my money, and you suggested a Roth IRA to be my number one, like the bonus money from cash and emergency fund. If you're going to invest, set it and forget it into a Roth IRA. And I I did forget about it for a bit. I knew the money was leaving my account, but you don't check it often. Um, and once the whole GameStop thing started and ended, I went back to that account and looked and felt much better about myself that I was not using this insane, I guess, once in a generation thing as my like, okay, this is what investing is. And so now personally, I'm someone that brings up IRAs as if I'm an expert on them. Meanwhile, I set one up once 10 months ago, and when when the market was among its lowest of all time. And I'm like, "Oh, look at the gains I got because, I got in at a good time or whatever." But that that's the sort of thing that you are more inclined to talk about, more inclined to tell people, okay, if you're not going to be as involved as you are because you have what, an 80 individual stock portfolio plus. How many individual stocks are you holding right now?
Yeah, rough somewhere around that. I think it's the last time I counted, I was about 65 or so.
Yeah, and you don't suggest anyone entering the market hold on to 65 individual stocks.
No.
Yeah. So that's always been your MO, is stick to what you know. If you want to get into the market, there's easy ways that are reliable, that aren't going to make you a millionaire overnight, but will increase your wealth in the long term. And for me, that's been an IRA with Vanguard ETF.
There
And
you go.
that's going to be my contribution to this is, if you have a few $100s every month that you want to put away, put it into an IRA and start as young as possible, because you will be happy you did it pretty early on.
You are young. You have a massive advantage in that you can put your money into the market for long, long, long periods of time. Any money that you can sock away today and invest will grow and grow and grow over a period of years and decades. And the more money you can sock away today, the more it will grow over time. If you don't need to access that money for a retirement period for decades, the best place to put it is in the market. But I know that you're going to know that I'm going to say that there are more important things than investing, especially when you're young and starting out. You have all kinds of expenses that you need to take on when you go from college to the real world. You need to get a place to live. You need to get transportation. You might have student loan debts. You might have credit card debt. You need to really hunker down on those things first. If you have any sort of debt holding you down and you have life things that you want to do in the next couple of years, you shouldn't be investing at all. You should be saving money. You should be building an emergency fund. You should be paying off high interest debt. You should be knocking down those things first before you start investing. You should really be investing in your career more than anything else. Try and find ways to grow your personal the amount of income that you can make in any given year, the amount of network contacts that you have, etc. Those are much better uses of your time than trying to figure out whether or not GameStop is going to go up or down next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing I was concerned about right out of school was a project like meta commentary, what we're doing right now. I didn't care about the stock market. I cared about setting up a stupid podcast. And no, I haven't made a cent from it, but it's skill. It's something that can get me to a happy career. And you've also been a proponent of saying the money's not the goal, it's the freedom and the security that's the goal. So having a job that you love is much more important than having $2 million. Well, that might be a bad number to compare it to. But I guess the core of what I'm saying is important. You've always encouraged that, to when I'm investing, to look into kind of what is that the goal for that money going to be. Is it going to be to retire off of? Is it to buy a house that could be an asset? Or is it to just get a couple extra bucks and have more fun in my 40s? Or I don't know. That's something to keep in mind. Anything to say on that front?
Money is there's a bunch of analogies that are imperfect, but one imperfect one that I think is less imperfect than the other is money is like fuel for a car. Like you can't run your car without it. But the point of living is not to have enough gas to drive your car. It's where you're going. Where's your destination? Are you having a good time while you're in your car? So yeah, it's important to both take care of your money so that you can do what you want and live the life that you want, more so than just having money in the first place. So yeah, for you, if you really enjoy podcasting, and I know you do, I know you love the gaming community, and that's just who you are. So yeah, take care of your money so that you can spend your time doing the things that you love.
Sorry about that. Had to cut. But the last thing we mentioned was why we invest and kind of the things that we're interested about, which kind of leads us into a topic we wanted to talk about, which is investing in video games. So this is something that I know you and Tyler have talked about, and it seems like Lindsay has a little bit of stock knowledge on Roblox, which we can get into. But one of the things you like to tell kids when you give, information on investing is invest in what you know about. And if you're interested in video games, there are tons of video game companies that you could invest in and find a lot of value in the long term. So what's your philosophy on what people should invest on? I know I kind of gave it away, but what do you have to add to that?
Everybody here knows, I mean, if you're listening to a podcast about video games, you know way more about video games than the average human. And you would probably know extreme details about video games. If you follow the video game industry, you know what's popular, who makes them, what's wrong with them, what games are. You can probably forecast what games are going to be popular. And if you're naturally interested in video games and you want to learn about investing, combine those two things together. There are dozens of video game companies out there, both direct, so companies that make video games, and there's also ancillary plays, companies that make video game systems, and you can kind of use your technology, your interest to build up a portfolio of gaming companies that you love as a consumer. I mean, the video games have been on a tremendous run over the last 20 years. I know that spending on video games is bigger than movies, music, and several other industries like combined. And 10 years from now, do you think video games are going to be more popular today than they are today, or less? I think they're going to be more popular than they are today. I could easily see, especially with the rise of esports, I could see esports being bigger than the NFL.
Right.
Like it already is second, I think, to the NFL in terms of viewership. That's it. But I could easily see it overtaking that in time. So if you're a believer in the power of video games to connect people, to entertain people, and you think that that's going to become more popular as technology continues to advance, there's a lot of reasons to be really interested in investing in the video game industry.
Yeah, totally on board with that. I think just from the small conversation we had beforehand, I'm already on board with at least this being my first front. I think I'm just kind of tickling around with whatever catches my eye on forums and just trying to spread myself and not be, just tickle around. But when it comes to doing actual research, it's a lot more interesting to read about a new product and get ahead of a rumored project if it's a game, and we can kind of look at a trailer and see much more than a hedge fund manager or someone not interested that's also trying to make plays. This game sucks. It's getting too much hype. I think this isn't going to work out. Or World of Warcraft subscribers are going down. I don't think Blizzard's a good play right now. Like things like that already cross our radar and are things we already talk about. And that's the kind of news and information that affects a stock. No, is whether or not we think something's going to pop. Like if we had an early rise on is Fortnite with a publicly traded company? Do you know?
Sadly, no. Epic Games created and owns Fortnite, and they are still privately held. I really wish they were publicly traded. That's a fascinating company. So yeah, unfortunately, Fortnite is. But Fortnite is the hyper growth of Fortnite has obviously tailed off, and there's been a lot of
Sure.
copycat products that are out there. So But yeah, if Epic Games was a publicly traded company that I could buy shares of, boy, would I be interested in that.
Right. Yeah. So that's the exact sort of thing that is just kind of putting the two pieces together. Is news we already know, and then okay, maybe this is something that hasn't caught on to the general investing public yet that we could have a leap on. And if that's not going to happen if we're looking into like semiconductors. If we're not interested in semiconductors, why would we know if it's a good time to invest in that? Definitely something I hope everyone takes away from this is that there's a way to invest that that are keeping to our interests, that isn't just shot in the dark. I hope this person's right on this YouTube video, which I feel people getting sucked in on, because it's easy to have something come up on your suggested, watch content on why X person thinks this is the right move, and to have confidence in that and say, oh, this person's successful, let me follow their investing, and I'm sure I'll make money. That being
Perhaps we should back up one second and just
sure.
Say that why what I'm saying matters, and what do I mean by growth in the video game industry. So it's very confusing, but there's a direct correlation between how a company does, like how much revenue it makes, how much profits it makes, and for a video game company, how do those companies make money? Well, they make hit games. If the game is successful, they sell lots and lots of copies, and they make lots and lots of money. If the game's not successful, they don't. So there's a direct relationship over time between how a company does and how its stock price does. Now, those things are uncorrelated in the short term, so even less than a year, a company could come out with a hit game and the stock could go down. A company could come up with a stinker and the stock could go up, which is super confusing. But if you invest in the long term, if you invest over long periods of time, you can turn little bits of money into lots of money. Just as a quick aside, I'm looking at the long-term chart for Activision Blizzard. If you invested in Activision Blizzard at the IPO, aka the first time that you could buy shares in 1993, you put $1,000 into Activision Blizzard and just held it until today. That's currently worth $100,000. So you turned 1,000 into a 100,000. They are not the only video game company that has prospered. If you could have somehow bought Electronic Arts in 1989, granted that was a long time ago, but $1,000 in Electronic Arts in 1989 is currently worth $285,000. So that just shows you how great you can do with a little bit of money by investing in great companies. The other one of the other big ones is Take-Two Interactive. They make their big game is Grand Theft Auto. They own a number of games, but that's their biggest one. Yeah, $1,000 in them in 1996. It's currently worth $47,000. So again, this is the power of taking a little bit of money and investing in the long term in companies that you really, really like. Now, all those stocks, that sounds easy. Yeah, you just buy it and hold it for a long time, and it does really well. There's ups and downs. Their stocks go kind of crazy, but if you were a believer in the video game industry, you could turn a little bits of money into lots of money. So that's what I mean by, if you have an expertise in the video game industry and you're interested in investing, just buy a couple of shares of a company that you love, and just hold it and track it and see how it does over long periods of time. That's how you can use your expertise to make the stock market work for you.
It's great advice. And I think there was one stock that you mentioned that I'm happy to talk about called Skills. And the unique thing about this is it's not necessarily a company that makes games. It's you mentioned it's a platform for hosting tournaments, which I'm super into. This is a Melee podcast, but it's about competition. So the idea of an esports adjacent structural product is really interested to me. So do you want to maybe give your spiel of how this is not financial advice, and then talk about a skill on camera? We talk about skills.
This is a company that recently came public, that's focused on the video game industry. Again, their company name is Skills, Skillz. Their ticker symbol is SKLZ. And what they do is they provide a platform that makes it easy for game developers to turn their mobile games into tournaments. And what the management team of Skills basically says is it's really hard to make money off of mobile games because there's so much competition out there. How do you even get interest in it? And it's hard to compete if you try to charge a price for your game. A lot of games are given away for free, and then they try and monetize you through in-game advertisements and convince you to upgrade from there. So one of the things that Skills does is it allows game developers to take their games and turn them into prize tournaments and have people compete against each other. And as you know, when you take a game and you turn it into a tournament or competition, it becomes a heck of a lot more fun to play, and you build a community around it. And so they charge gamers fees to enter these tournaments, and then they compete against each other. And the top gamer takes home some of the prize money for winning, and then Skills takes a portion of the revenue that's generated from the tournament, gives some of it to the game developer, and keeps some of it for themselves. So they help game developers to monetize games that otherwise would be really, really hard to monetize. So it's kind of disrupting the business model for video games, and they're growing very rapidly while they do this. And this is a roughly a $10 billion company today. And if you think their model is working and that kind of interests you, this might be a stock to look at, to get to know, to check it out. And if you're a game developer, it totally makes sense to give this platform a try. But again, this is not a company that I know tremendously well, but it's in your world, and the people that are listening to this might be far more knowledgeable about the benefits of using this than I would.
Yeah, I think you covered all the kind of value props really well. Obviously, there's a lot of detail that goes into, is this a successful model? Is there going to be another, I guess, copycat or a better type of this that actually wins out? So, it's not all about, oh, this Skills is the only company that's allowed to do this. Like, there's a lot more, what they say, the fundamentals of it are important to know. So he's not saying buy the stock. He's saying it could be interesting to learn about. But from the perspective of someone who's entering tournaments, yes, it is way more fun and way more interesting when there's something on the line. And even if it's not that much money, this isn't about everyone entering tournaments for this mobile game to be a millionaire. But if you want to, let's say you're a content creator, you want to back up your results, you need to show that you've won a tournament. It's not just about having a high ladder or MMR in playing against scrubs and beating a bunch of bad people. It's about showing, okay, when it comes down to the best of the best, this is my value. So it's not just about the creator of the tournament trying to make a few extra bucks. It's, as you said, the community that forms around it. These like bedrock things that I would look to, if you could invest in just individual video games, if that's how it worked, where you don't put money in Epic, you put money in Fortnite. I'm looking for the game that has a, this is from my Melee perspective, like a grassroots community around it that has people that no matter what will show up and play, even if only 8 people are at the tournament, they're there for the game itself. And that can't exist without the tournament. So that's
probably they're more for the community than they are for the actual game itself.
Oh, 100%, man. The worst things about quarantine was that there was a local tournament in New York City that I was going to for a few months, and it was just about like every Wednesday, that's what you did. And you show up, and it's with other people that go through the same ups and downs of competition through the same game, and only they know that specific feeling of missing an edge guard or SDing on a ledge dash less stock, stuff like that. It's so specific that, yeah, I could talk on and on about the value of the Melee community, but if there's a company out there that's helping people build that, even if it's through mobile games, who we look down upon as as GameCube players, mobile games are games. They have value.
They're also an on-ramp for a lot of people to get into the video game industry. So if you're interested in growing the gaming community, even if you look down on mobile games, you should be cheering them on because they create gamers more than anything else.
Absolutely, yeah. If I wouldn't invest in this company if it were holding GameCube tournaments, that's for sure. Well, cool. I think going through like a specific company like that is such a good exercise because that's kind of what you do when you look at a stock, right? You look at it holistically. How would you define? Would you define yourself as a speculative value trader?
No, I would define myself as an investor,
Okay.
and that the investor means someone that owns things. So why would you to become an investor is to recognize some attributes in a company that you like, and I have many attributes that I look for in a company, and then predicting by looking at trends, this company is going to continue to be successful into the future. So I look for my investing style is to look for awesome companies that have done great things in the past and say, hey, I think this company's going to continue to succeed into the future. And that would be my investing style. Traders, by comparison, say, hey, this stock is worth X today. I wonder if I can buy it and sell it to somebody at X plus 1% in an hour or a day, and that's trading. So that's the exact opposite of investing. So I advocate for buying and holding great companies that you think will stay great for a long time.
Awesome. Yeah, good differentiation. I'm glad I brought up the trading word because it seems like you weren't too happy about it.
Correct.
All right, cool. So we have about 10 minutes. I want to just run through my personal finance because this is a podcast about, it's about people, but there's only so much we could talk about in a general sense. That also selfishly, now that I have you, I want to ask you a few questions that maybe you could help with. And it's kind of about what I would think of is called aggressive investing strategy. And here's the, the background to this. So, as you know, I'm living with our grandmother. As cousins, we share a grandmother, and with that comes no rent. So for the past year and a half, I've been paying rent. Now I have the same income with a huge portion of that putting back into my pockets, and I don't have a lot to spend on. So I had a decent investing strategy with rent. Now I have an extra X amount of money that I'm looking to, use a little more fruitfully. So, first off, what time frame makes sense from your perspective to say I want to turn this into this? What's like the minimum time frame that you think of? 2 years, 3 years? What's on your mind?
When investing,
Yeah.
yeah, minimum of 3 years. Minimum, I would say 5 years better, and best is multi-decade.
Okay. So if I'm looking to, let's say, 100% into the market and then 100% out at X date, I should look for about, let's cut in the middle, say 4 years, right? Like, let's say I want to turn that money into a down payment on a house, extract it for something that is quote unquote adult purchase. That's the time frame that you suggest is around 4 years.
Yeah, well, if you knew that I was going to be taking this money and be buying a house, and you wanted to buy a house within 5 years, let's just say, I would say don't put it in the market.
Okay,
I
so
would say
let's
keep it out of the market because you have a specific use for that money. That would be a down payment on a house, and you have to think, all right, what are the odds that I won't be able to use this money for my specific intended use? And the odds of those, if you put money into the market, the odds that it would be worth more in 5 years are pretty good, but it's not 100%. There's been many periods in U.S. history where you put money in and then 5 years later you would be down. So that is not a risk worth taking if you do intend to, uh, if your goal is to become a homeowner.
okay. Good to know. So this is sort of the longer you go, the lower that percentage chance goes, I assume. So if you're dollar cost averaging over the course of 5 years, the next 5 years will combined turn that into a much higher success rate.
Yes.
Okay.
My favorite stat on that is there's never been a 20-year period in U.S. history where you didn't make that you didn't earn a positive return investing in the U.S. stock market.
Okay.
100% of the time, you've earned money if you invested it for 20 years.
Okay. That's, again, really good to know. So I guess there's the other way of saying that is that there's no safe way, there's no 100% guaranteed way to enter the market in a short term mindset.
Correct. There's no yes. The shorter your time horizon, the more random the outcomes. On any given day, the market goes up. I think it's 52% of the time, and down 48% of the time. It's pretty darn close to a coin flip, if not that. And then the longer your holding period, the higher the likelihood that the odds tip in your favor. And at 5 years, I'm almost positive the odds are about 85 or 90%, somewhere around there. But over a 20-year period, I know that it's 100%. So yeah, when you put money into the market, you need to have a long, multi-year time horizon. You can't have a short one, because otherwise it's literally, over the short term, investing in the stock market is indistinguishable from gambling. Over the long term, it's indistinguishable from doing something smart.
Gotcha. Okay. So that puts in perspective, because I know, again, with the IRA, that's not something I'm going to touch until I'm in my 50s. That's by definition of it, there's penalties if you don't.
Yes, there's penalties for taking it out early.
Yeah. So that's an easy way to just sort of know it's going to quite easily pass that 20-year benchmark. It's, whatever. Maybe when I'm 40, I'll stop contributing. It doesn't matter. The point is that is one section of it. So for someone like me who's coming into another around $1,000 a month, that I'm not crazy about spending that money, I want to put it somewhere. You think that the easiest short-term decision is to keep it in savings?
If you have a specific use for it, if you're saying I'm saving this for a down payment, yes, the easiest thing, the best thing to do with that would be to put it into a boring checking account where it's doing nothing, because you have a specific need for it. Now, as you know, and unfortunately, everyone your age knows, house prices were expensive 2 years ago, and they've gotten ridiculously expensive now. So even if you're saving $1,000 a month, which is a lot of money, that's an awesome savings rate, especially for your age. Over a 5-year period, that would amount to about $60,000 roughly, and in a lot of parts of the country, that's barely table stakes to have a down payment on a house, given where house prices have gone. So I feel for you, man. It was expensive to buy a house when I bought a house for the first time 10 years ago, and it's just gotten even crazier.
Damn. Well, to be fair, and maybe this will kind of pivot the conversation a little bit. We're not planning on buying a house in the next 5 years. That was just like an example thing. So I guess to extract the generality from that, if you have a specific goal, the stock market's not the move. So this is, this is something that I want to enter more. I think I decided that I will spend a lot more time focusing on, at least to start, video game companies or companies of things that I'm interested in, even if, maybe companies that make audio equipment, companies that are helping people make content, like those sort of things are what I'm going to start looking at more. So let's like make a derivative of an investing strategy and do like a research strategy. So someone who wants to learn more about the stock market in an efficient way, away from the hype, away from the following the charts and just saying, oh, it went up today, oh, it went down. What is something that you would recommend people start off with? How do you learn about the market? How do I learn about the market in a way that is entertaining and sustainable and will actually help me become a better investor?
I'm a huge fan of podcasts. Podcasts are fun, they're entertaining, and they are educational. So the Motley Fool company I work for has 5 podcasts that are out there, and if you just listen to those daily, they're free. They're 20 minutes or so, and they talk about companies that you've heard of, how their earnings reports do. They teach you how to analyze a business. They teach you what matters, what doesn't matter. Start there. that can be just a great way to get your feet wet and see if you're interested. And that's the most important thing there is, are you interested? If you're not interested in investing, you don't have to be. You don't have to pick your own stocks. You can just invest in the market, the entire market, through something called index funds. And if you invest in index funds, which is essentially owning everything, you own every stock, the good ones and the bad ones, you'll do great. You'll do great over time, and it takes no research, no thinking, no analysis, no worrying. So that can be a great alternative. But if what I'm saying interests you, and you're like, I want to learn how to analyze a company like Skills or EA or Activision Blizzard or Unity Software, etc., just start listening to the Motley Fool's free podcast. That's a great way to kind of, if you don't have the patience or time to listen to a couple podcasts, then investing isn't for you, and that's fine.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's a pretty accessible way to get into anything. It's just sort of, hey, put on this passive content avenue
and see if it entertains you.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't entertain you, great.
Not for you.
It's important to know. Yes, it's important to know it's not for you, and you can just ignore the market your entire life.
Awesome. Yeah. So a quick rapid fire. I don't want to keep you too long, although I could talk about this all day. Crypto. You don't follow crypto much, do you?
I know enough about it to know that I don't know enough about it, but I do follow it.
And now that companies like Tesla are starting to put that on their balance sheet, I'm assuming this is something you're kind of forced to learn a little bit more about. It's kind of merging a little bit with the overall market, no? Or am I misstepping here?
I mean, Tesla made big waves when they invested, I think, $1 billion or $2 billion of their capital into it, and companies like Square and MicroStrategy and a couple others have done similar things. So it's getting a lot more interest than it has recently. But for Tesla in particular, $1 billion sounds like a lot of money because it is a lot of money. But compared to Tesla, the entire company is worth about $600 billion. So it's a big bet in absolute terms, but compared to the size of the company, it's irrelevant.
Okay, so you think the hype around like, oh, the markets are getting into Bitcoin, it's more just Tesla did it, it made a splash in media, and it's not necessarily indicative of, like, again, the fundamentals of what's actually going on? Or do you think that this is beginning of a trend? I know, again, you just said you don't know too much about it, so I'm not trying to push, but any ideas?
I have no problem with some people using some of their capital to buy Bitcoin. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I think I set up last month like $80 a month or something. I'm putting into Bitcoin. Just like, if I'm gonna get into it, it's not gonna be a one-time thing. It's gonna be small over time. Dollar cost average is what the crypto community really pushes. So you could believe in it long term and not over leverage too early. So we'll see how that develops. Over time. I'll keep you up to date with my right now. Definitely down, but whatever. Cool. Okay. And I guess if you have a few more minutes, I do want to talk about the idea of buying the dip, which is something that really comes up a lot. It's kind of the main thing people newly interested in the stock market, seeing this whole thing, are highly focused on getting in at the right time. So I know you're not an advocate for trading. Personally, I think everyone knows it's impossible to time the dip, but someone who might have that on their mind, like, I see the stock, I want to buy it, but I don't want to buy it yet. It's not good enough. What's your mindset on that?
If you look back at the long-term history of the stock market, it's easy to figure out when the highs and lows are. It's really easy. You just look when the highs are, say, you sell there, and then look when the lows are and say, you buy there. So it's really tempting to say, I can time the market, because look how easy it is when you look at this historic chart. The tricky thing about that is doing it in real time with incomplete information and incomplete emotions against the whims of other flawed humans is ridiculously difficult. Just recently, the market high in before the big crash of 2008 was July 2007. The market basically traded sideways and then started to go down, and then it really started to go down in September, October, November of 2008. That was when the peak of the crisis was in, and it did bottom until March of 2009. And you had to know in March 2009, okay, this is the bottom. How would you know that?
Hmm.
Any newspaper you looked at, any headline you saw was bad. Unemployment skyrocketing, government deficits skyrocketing, people getting kicked out of their houses, foreign countries defaulting on their debt, companies, 100-year-old institutions cratering, and yet that was the bottom. If you think that you could look at the news or look at the stock price movements and figure out, oh yeah, right now is the bottom, good luck to you. I think that you are. I know that I do not have the ability to do that. Just look at even 2020. The peak in 2020 was February 15th, something like that, and then within 1 month, the stock market was down 35%. It was the fastest bear market decline in U.S. market history. And if you looked at the headlines, the news headlines since the market bottom, again March 15th or something like that was the market bottom. The news just kept getting worse. Coronavirus was unstoppable. Country after country, sure they were. The unemployment rate was skyrocketing. People were forced to stay home. Everything looks terrible, and yet that was the time to buy. So if you think that you can time the market, I know that I can't do it, and I know that a whole bunch of the greatest investors of all time know that they can't do it. So yeah, it's really tempting to tell yourself that you can do it. And if you're looking back at history, it's really easy to say, oh, this is when you can do it. When you're living through it, minute by minute, day by day, and you have to confront headline after headline after headline and manage your emotions for not seconds. It's not a decision that you make. You have to. Let's say you had the guts to buy February 28th, okay? Because the stock market was down maybe 15% at that point, and then you had to hold while the market went down another 20%. And this was not, again, and it wasn't instantaneous, and then it was all up from there. It was hour after hour, day after day, headline after headline of you second guessing yourself. Did I screw up? I'm losing money on paper. It's down. Boy, is that hard to do. So yes, don't market time. Don't try and pick the bottom. Don't try and buy on dips. If you like something and you think it has a long, bright future ahead, buy it. If you don't.
So if people have money, their weekly checks, and they have 10% of that or whatever it is they want to fool around with, should they just consistently drip into a portfolio? And
exactly
what sort of things should they just pick a stock for this current month? Okay, for the next month or so, I'm going to buy this stock, but slowly over time, or save up and then buy in a chunk. What's your suggested method?
Again, it's tempting for people to go all in on one stock in the beginning because they know it or they like it or something along those lines. But investing is really about going slow. It's really about building up your knowledge and your education before you put money behind your picks. So I'm a big fan of just investing in what are called index funds, which are just like you own everything. You own the entire market when you do that, because then you are not betting on one company. You're betting on thousands of companies. And if you look back at history, the market goes up about 8%, 8 to 10% annually over long periods of time. In any given year, anything can happen. The market can go up 40%, can go down 40%. You don't know what's going to happen in any given year, 2 years, 3-year period. But over really long periods of time, you can be reasonably confident that if you buy just the entire market, that you'll make somewhere between 5 and 10% annually. So that would be, if you're interested in the market, I would say go for that. And just, whenever you get a paycheck, put a certain amount into the stock market, just through index funds, and just do that for 30 years. And in 30 years, you'll be very happy you did that.
Okay. Well, great. I mean, I think first steps for me, start listening to a couple podcasts. Then from there, I'm going to research into a couple stocks and then pick and choose smartly. And we'll see if I could find some deep value. I think this was really helpful for me, for everyone listening. Is there anything you think we left out? Any important final words that you want to give off to people entering the market?
Yes. Falco is better than Fox.
Oh my God. Are you for real? Did you
My
really
opinion.
Oh my God.
Is that wrong?
It's controversial, man.
Oh, it's controversial.
Well,
Oh,
it is
okay.
wrong. It's wrong. But I
know. Fox is the best character, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I play with Falco.
Okay. Oh,
and
man.
I'm sure everybody listening to this could kick my butt at Melee. So, but I could beat level 9 computers sometimes. So not to brag.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I would hold off on boasting too much. Well, cool. Yeah, thanks for coming on and causing a bit of a crapshoot at the end there.
Yeah.
Really, I might have to cut that part.
Happy to mix things up.
Well, great. I mean, do you want to leave any plugs? Your Twitter, maybe, or things on
Sure.
Motley Fool?
Yeah. I tweet about money and investing all the time. That's the best way to connect with me is on Twitter. I'm at Brian Feroldi.
You're the second Brian F. we've had on our podcast.
For real?
Someone, yeah, their tag is Brian F. He's I believe a Street Fighter player. My
Street Fighter.
My co-host
Street Fighter
interviewed in Street Fighter. Man, I should know. I think it's Street Fighter 5.
Okay.
But I think
more Street Fighters. I was a big Street Fighter player back in the day.
I think 2 is considered one of the best games of all time.
Yeah, no doubt.
Did you ever play Third Strike?
Nope.
That's big right now. That's one of the. It's a game like Melee where like it's quite old, but it held up so well and it has this like groundswell of talent and whatever. I'm not going to get into fighting games, but I am going to follow you on Twitter, which I didn't even know you're on. Whoa, is this you? You have the cartoon profile
The one
picture?
that looks like me?
Does it? Yeah, not a lot of hair on him.
So that would look like me.
Motley Fool writer. Wow, you have almost 100,000 followers?
Getting close.
I had no idea. Are you gonna retweet us on the
I don't know
podcast?
if the people that follow me are going to be interested in a podcast about Melee.
We did talk about Melee.
Oh, that's true. Maybe I will, Jesse.
Okay. Well, it'd really help us out. Hey, this was a lot of fun. I learned something about my cousin that he's a lot more clouded on Twitter than I am. Very cool. Thanks for coming on, man. This was a great time.
Anytime, Jesse.
And now, as a bonus, we have Brian's kids coming on to their, I think, 3rd podcast appearance of all time. Give it a listen. It's very cute. So, because of all the craziness in the stock market lately, I have been wanting to talk to my cousin, Brian, because he, for lack of a better term, is a stock market expert. He is a writer for the Motley Fool, a highly regarded market watching website and blog. He has a family who is also an expert in their own right. And I'm having them on for a short segment to talk about their favorite video games. And then later we'll be talking about stocks. So first, Brian, how are you?
Jesse, I am doing fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. And first and foremost, starting the kid round, we have Tyler. Tyler, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
So Tyler, how old are you?
I'm 10.
10 years old. And I've heard that I haven't heard, we've played Super Smash Brothers.
Yes.
What's your favorite Super Smash Bros. Game?
Well, I like Melee and Brawl because I think it's cool in Melee that you can like, well, it's like we played that more, and so we've gotten used to it, and then we know all the characters' moves. And in Brawl, you can do like the final smash, and it's a cool animation.
Good answer. Honestly, those are 2 of my favorites too. So, as you may know, Tyler, this is a podcast where we talk about Melee every week. So, do you know anything about the competitive Melee scene?
A little bit. I know they do like Super Smash Bros. Tournaments sometimes.
Yeah, that's because you're related to me. I'm sure I told you some stuff. So I have a few questions for you if you're ready.
Okay.
Okay. First off, in Melee, who is your favorite character?
My favorite character, I like Captain Falcon.
Oh, nice. Why? Why do you like him?
because he's pretty fast and he can do a lot of damage and it takes a long time for him to until gets knocked out of the screen.
Okay, yeah, he's really good at like hitting people hard. From like he could run and jump from like one side of the stage and just like hit you with his knee and send you flying. He's one of my favorites too. So next question: who is the most difficult level 9 computer?
The most difficult level on a computer we've played was was probably Falcon and Mario. It's just that they could just move around so well and hit us a lot of times. It took us like 1 or 2 tries to finally defeat them.
Wait, only one or two?
About because
Wow.
we work together a lot.
Yeah. So you guys, how do you guys like to play Melee? Brian, you could chime in here too.
How do we like to play it? Yeah, we usually do 2-on-2, us versus the computer on level 9, because as you know, when you're a casual player, level 9 is pretty hard. It's not like the first one where level 9 is a cakewalk. But that's what I grew up playing. I'm a big fan of the original Super Smash Brothers, although Tyler has convinced me that Melee is actually a lot of fun. But it's more of a fighting game, so there's a lot of fighting. I'm used to the first one where it's mostly throwing and spiking. Not so much of that in Melee.
Tyler, do you think it took you a little bit of time to get used to Melee from the original? Because you started with the original, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it took me a little time because Captain Falcon Spike in the first one was pretty good. I tried to do that, but I just kept on failing and dying. So I started to move on, and then I discovered his knee, and that made it a lot easier.
Cool. All right. So I have a final question, and this is not a test. All right. There's no real wrong answer, but I remember a phone call we had a few months ago, and you asked me what the best characters were. Now, it's okay if you don't know the exact order and all that, but if you could just help me out with maybe 5 of those top 10 that I told you, some of the best characters in the game. Who do you think the best characters in the game are?
Jigglypuff, Peach, Falco, and Fox, and Marth and Pikachu are pretty good.
Ah, that was great, man. You picked a really good top 5. I'm so proud to be related to such Smash experts. Uh, and Tyler, actually, I do have one question because I'm going to be talking to your dad about stocks. Before I talk to your sisters about their expertise, I want to ask you, what is one stock that you like, and why do you like it?
Well, I like a lot of stocks, but my favorite one, I like EA Sports because they come out with like different variety of video games like Madden, pretty sure Battlefields, FIFA, and those games are pretty fun to play.
Yeah, they're really popular. I think it's a great choice. They have a good business model. Cool. Me personally, I really like Disney lately.
Yeah.
Because I've been watching The Mandalorian and WandaVision on Disney Plus, and a lot of people like Disney Plus. So that's my take. Your
Hot take.
hot take. Disney's a good company. All right, Tyler, thank you so much. Any parting words?
No, not really.
Okay. Very cool. Thanks a lot. And we're going to continue on. Lindsay, I see you back there. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Hello, Lindsay. How are you?
Good.
How old are you?
I'm 8.
8 years old. And I hear, this is coming from the grapevine, there's a rumor that you're a Roblox expert. Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm more of a Minecraft guy myself. So you're gonna have to give me a little bit of information about Roblox. What is this game?
It's a game that has like mini games in it. It's not like just Minecraft at all, where you create your own worlds. But in Roblox, you actually can.
Okay, and so some of these mini games, what are they like? Hide and seek and tag? Like what kind of? Okay.
There's some stories where you have to complete a course, and work together with your teammates on in the game.
Oh wow, this sounds like what people try to do with Minecraft, but it looks like there's more tools in this game to do that stuff.
Yeah, but you don't. It's not like survival at all.
Okay.
There's no creepers. There's nothing. There's one of my favorite ones is probably Frosty Mountain.
Frosty Mountain.
I only completed it once. I know how both of the endings go because well, the first time I played it, I died, so I didn't know what to do. And then I ended up actually completing it.
That's awesome. Okay, so some of these are I'm assuming some of the levels are very easy and some
There's no
are
level.
or some of
There's
the
no
courses.
level. You go through different things together.
So
Like one of them is climbing up to the first campsite area, and the tourist gets knocked over by a boulder. And then you have to go into a cave, and the cave gets blocked out by the snow from the blizzard.
Oh wow.
Then you have to go through the cave, and there's ice. The water is all freezing, so if you jump in it, you'll start taking damage. And there is also another way that you can do it. It's at the end, if you're still alive, after you're jumping on the rocks or falling in the water, there will be you have to wait for this ice blast. If you touch it, you'll turn into ice and keep taking damage till you die, and then you'll respawn and have to do it all again and start all over.
Oh shoot. All right, that sounds pretty difficult. So is this Snowy Mountain that you're talking about?
Yes.
And you've completed this?
Yes.
Wow.
Once.
Good for you. Do you get medals or does it tell you like achievements?
Yeah, you get a medal for completing the story.
That was a shot in the dark. I did not know they gave medals. That's awesome. Okay, so this game sounds like it's so many different things wrapped into one just like sandbox game. Have you ever made a level? Is there a story that you might want to make?
I don't really know how to do that.
All right, maybe one day. No,
That'd be a pretty cool project sometime. Too bad school wasn't like your assignment today is make a level.
You can't really add on to other games, but you can create your own.
Yeah, well, that sounds like something that you are creative enough to do, but no pressure. You know, there's so much time in the future. Is there anything that you need to say Roblox has this? Like, what's something really important that someone who's never heard about Roblox needs to know right now?
That in 2020 there was only 115 thousand players, and now there's 150 today.
Oh wow! So someone's been looking at an IPO and telling their kids about it, huh?
That might have been an order of magnitude or two off, but yes, the direction was correct.
Well, we'll talk about it. Lindsay, I think you just gave everyone a very hot tip. Thank you so much for talking about your favorite game, and it looks like you have a friend with you. What's that friend's name?
His name is Huggies, and he's an elf, and I got him at Target for $24.
Most stuffed toys don't have an origin story with a price tag. That's so amazing. Lindsay, you were great. This was so much fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. And finally, last but certainly not least, we have the youngest, Madeline. Hello.
Hi.
Madeline, how old are you?
6.
6 years old. And I heard that you're an expert or something, but you actually didn't tell me beforehand. You just grabbed some stuff. What do you want to talk about today?
Stuffed animals.
Awesome. So you brought 2 friends. I need you to tell me who they are real quick.
This is Huggles, my brother's stuffed animal, and this is my stuffed animal, Buttercup. I got her for Christmas.
for Christmas. No price tag involved.
Don't know the price of that one.
So I need you to tell me about do they have personalities? Are they different types of, is one more fun than the other? What's going on here?
We have like a lot of stuffed animals, and most of them we have like lammies, elephants, and we don't have that many doggies. But we have a lot of them, and they all have names. Some of them don't, and all of our stuffed animals that we have and we sleep with, they have a favorite food.
Oh, okay. What are some of these favorite foods?
Strawberries, pine, cupcake.
Some of my favorite foods too.
And oranges.
So I have to ask, if you had to.
And apples.
Okay, apples is the healthiest I've heard in that bunch. Although strawberries is pretty good too. Madeline, if you had to guess, how many stuffed animals do you own?
I think we have like 100.
100 stuffed animals. Wow. And so, out of all the hundreds, do you play with every single one?
What? No, not. We don't play. We only play with the ones that are upstairs, not the ones that are downstairs, because the downstairs ones are like for snuggling and cuddling and stuff.
Okay, so they have different roles in the community. They have different jobs.
Yes.
So can you hold up the toys you brought again?
What?
The toys you brought, can you show them to me? Buttercup. Oh wow. Okay, you brought 3. Oh, okay. I didn't know you brought this many. I thought you just said 2. Okay, I have one final question.
What?
If all of your stuffed animals had to throw a house party, who would be hosting? Who's the most responsible? Oh.
He's 10.
So is that the oldest?
Yeah.
Can you what's his name? Lovey hosting the party where all the other friends come. That's something you could maybe do. You could steal that idea if you need a Saturday afternoon plan.
Sounds good.
Madeline, this was so much fun. Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.
All right. Have a great day. We could maybe say goodbye later. Now it's time for me to steal away your dad and talk about some boring stuff.
I don't like boring stuff.
Perfect. Seamless transition.